Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a truly iconic piece of literature, a story whose very title resonates with such a profound truth. We're talking about Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. And that title, of course, it comes from the poet W.B. Yeats, who wrote, "Turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world." It's a powerful invocation, isn't it? Our mission today is to explore Achebe's groundbreaking 1958 novel. It vividly chronicles the life of Okonkwo, a leader in an Igbo community. We'll delve into the intricate world he inhabits, the challenges he faces, and the tragic unraveling of both his personal life and his society, with the intrusion of, white missionaries and the colonial government in the 1890s.
And what's really remarkable about this novel, I think, is that Achebe wasn't just, telling a story. He was, as our sources highlight, providing this intelligent and deeply realistic treatment of tribal beliefs and the psychological disintegration that, inevitably accompanies societal collapse. This book was pivotal. It really helped spark the Nigerian literary renaissance of the 1960s. It offers a vital, unfiltered window into understanding cultural clash and its profound human cost. It really challenges a lot of those existing Western narratives.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's unpack this then. Our story begins not really with the fall, but with a remarkable ascent, the rise of Okonkwo, a man utterly determined to carve out his own destiny. He was driven by this intense shame, a visceral fear of being anything like his father, Inoka. Unoka was, to put it mildly, kind of a failure in his community's eyes. Poor, debt-ridden, known more for his flute than his farm, and seen as a coward. He even died of this abomination sickness, swelling, and was left in the evil forest. Okonkwo, in this powerful act of defiance, just actively rejected everything his father embodied, especially gentleness and idleness.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How that personal motivation directly fuels his ambition. Okonkwo's early life is just a testament to individual achievement. From a young age, he establishes his fame, brings honor to his village by defeating Amelins the cat, this great wrestler, unbeaten for 7 years. He built himself up entirely from scratch, and this really exemplifies a core Igbo value, captured in that elder's saying, "If a child washed his hands, he could eat with kings." He absolutely washed his hands, earned his place among the powerful, didn't inherit it.
Yeah, and his physical presence seemed to reflect this ambition too, right? Tall, imposing with a severe look, walked as if ready to pounce, often resorting to his fists when angry, partly, maybe, to compensate for a slight stammer he had. His rise truly exemplifies the core values of Umuofia, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Okonkwo embodies that Igbo reverence for achievement like few others in the story. Their society profoundly valued hard work and success. The yam, for instance, wasn't just a crop. It was the king of crops, a potent symbol of wealth and, importantly, manliness. Okonkwo became a wealthy farmer, 2 barns full of yams, and he achieved 2 significant titles early in life. That showed his prowess and status. Proverbs, too, were more than just sayings. They were central to communication, described as the palm oil with which words are eaten.
Meaning they smooth the way for difficult conversations, make things palatable.
Exactly. They add depth and wisdom. And then there's the concept of chi, the personal god, or maybe destiny. There's an Igbo proverb that says, "A man's chi affirms when a man says yes." And Okonkwo, through sheer will and hard work, said yes very strongly. It's a society that really values action and, self-made success.
Okay, so now let's dive into the intricate web of Umuofia's customs. Not just how they live day to day, but how they govern, how they love, how they grieve. Their justice system was deeply rooted in the community. Remember when Mbino murdered Ogbuefi Udo's wife? The clan didn't go to war immediately. They demanded compensation, a young man and a virgin. And that's how Akimefuna, the boy destined for sacrifice, comes to live with Okonkwo's family.
Right, a form of restorative or perhaps retributive justice decided by the collective.
And for more complex disputes, they had the Agugu, these masked ancestral spirits who administered justice in public hearings. Can you imagine the scene? Men cloaked in raffia, fearsome masks, embodying the village's ancestors, hearing cases like that marital dispute between Ozowulu and McBuffalo.
Yeah. It's quite theatrical, but deeply serious. And what's crucial to understand here is that this system, with its masked spirits and communal consensus, it was incredibly powerful for maintaining internal order, resolving conflicts. But here's maybe the profound insight or irony. Its very strength Its rootedness in tradition and spiritual belief became a huge vulnerability when it confronted an external secular power, a power that just didn't understand or respect its foundations.
Yeah, it didn't map onto their system at all.
Not at all. It's a stark illustration of how radically different power structures can collide.
Right. And beyond these communal decisions, for like critical choices or spiritual guidance, there was the Oracle of the Hills and the Caves, Agbala. It was consulted. Its priestess, Kielo, became truly formidable when possessed by the spirit of Agbala. The community also observed the Week of Peace, a sacred time before planting, dedicated to Ani, the earth goddess. This week demanded absolute peace. No harsh words, definitely no violence. Yet Okonkwo, in a fit of anger over his youngest wife, Weklugo, being late, he beats her.
A major transgression.
Huge. And Ezeani, the priest of Ani, sternly punishes him. It highlights the supremacy of community law even over a respected, powerful man like Okonkwo. It was considered a great evil, something that could, ruin the whole clan's harvest.
It's a powerful moment showing that nobody, not even Okonkwo with all his titles and strength, is above those fundamental laws that bind their society. His personal rage, his temperament, it's secondary to the community's needs and its sacred traditions.
Exactly. Okonkwo's transgression during the Week of Peace showed the immense power of communal law. But what happens when that same communal law, or a sacred decree, demands a sacrifice that tears at the very fabric of family? This brings us to the tragic story of Ikemefuna. He lives with Okonkwo's family for 3 years, becomes like an elder brother to Nwoye, Okonkwo's first son, kindles a new fire in Nwoye, calls Okonkwo father, and Okonkwo, despite his outward harshness, we see he grows inwardly quite fond of the boy. But then, the oracle decrees Ikakwaya must die. And Azoidu, a respected elder, specifically warns Okonkwo, do not bear a hand in his death, he says, because the boy calls you father.
It's a truly gut-wrenching decision point, isn't it? A direct conflict between religious duty, communal law, and personal affection, that paternal bond. Despite that clear warning, Okonkwo, driven by that constant fear of being thought weak or effeminate by his peers, he participates in the killing. He even delivers the fatal blow himself. That act just reveals so much about how deeply his personal anxieties about weakness are intertwined with societal expectations and the perceived need to uphold tradition, even when it violates something so fundamental as a paternal bond.
And for Nwoye, his son, it's more than just grief, it's a fundamental betrayal. Achebe writes that something seemed to give way inside him, like the snapping of a tightened bow. It really foreshadows his later detachment from the clan's traditions. It's the first major crack, isn't it? Not just in Okonkwo's emotional armor, but in Nwoye's connection to everything his father represents.
That image is so powerful, a spirit breaking under the weight of such a violent contradiction. And the novel continues to explore these deeply personal struggles woven into the culture. Think of Ekwefi and her daughter, Ezinma. Ekwefi suffers heartbreak after heartbreak, 9 of her 10 children dying in infancy. Just devastating. Ezinma is believed to be an Ogbanje, a changeling child, one who repeatedly dies and returns just to torment her mother. And to break this cycle, finding the Iua, the special stone connecting the child to the spirit world, it's critically important.
Right, there's that dramatic scene.
Yes. With the medicine man, Okogbu, digging up Ezinma's Iua, it turns out to be just a smooth pebble wrapped in a dirty rag. But digging it up is believed to finally sever that bond and allow her to live.
These are such deeply ingrained cultural beliefs, powerful forces in their lives. And this raises an important question, doesn't it? How do these personal struggles and these, deeply held convictions like the Ogbanje concept or the power of the oracle, how do they intersect with the bigger story? The story of society on the brink of massive change. What happens when these convictions are challenged by an external force that just sees the world in an entirely different way?
That's precisely where Achebe takes us next. We start to see those first real cracks appear with the arrival of this completely foreign force.
Our story introduces this shift through Obierika, Okonkwo's good friend. He recounts the chilling destruction of Abami, a single white man riding what they called an iron horse, which we understand as a bicycle appeared. The oracle, when they consulted it, warned that this man was a harbinger, like the first locust before the swarm, a sign of more white men to come. In their fear, the clan killed him and tied his bicycle to a sacred tree.
A fatal miscalculation.
Totally. Tragically, this act led to their doom. Later, a larger group of white men, soldiers this time, attacked the market during market day, killed almost everyone. The lake, Obierika says, turned the color of blood. Just horrific.
The Abame incident is such a critical turning point. It establishes this pattern of, well, misunderstanding on both sides, leading to brutal retaliation. It's a stark warning that the Klan, despite maybe some initial amusement or dismissal, tragically misinterpreted the situation. And Okonkwo's uncle, Uhindu, back in Mbanta, offers this profound piece of wisdom on Abame's fate. He says, "Never kill a man who says nothing. Those men of Abame were fools. There is something ominous behind the silence."
A warning about underestimating the unfamiliar.
Exactly, and the grave consequences of acting from fear without understanding.
Indeed. And soon after, during Okonkwo's exile in Mbanta, the white missionaries arrived, led by Mr. Brown and his Igbo interpreter. The initial reactions from the villagers, they range from, like, amusement to confusion, especially at the interpreter's dialect. Apparently, he kept saying, "my buttocks," instead of "myself," and the whole concept of a single god without a wife seemed absurd to them.
Right, it just didn't fit their cosmology at all.
So as a challenge, and really expecting them to die, the Mbanta elders give the missionaries a plot of land in the evil forest, this place of abominations where people who died of shameful diseases were left, where cursed things resided.
Yeah.
But to everyone's shock, the missionaries don't die within the expected 4 days. They survive. They even start building their church. And this survival is seen as proof of the white man's unbelievable power, maybe linked to his fetish, his eyeglasses, which they'd never seen before.
That perceived immunity from their god's retribution, that's a major psychological blow to the existing belief system, isn't it? It creates an opening, a doubt.
And it starts to draw converts, often from the margins of society, and initially, the Ifufu, the men considered worthless or empty. People like Nika, a woman who had borne 4 sets of twins, all of whom had to be abandoned in the forest according to custom. The church offered her refuge, and also the Usu, a group of ritual outcasts. People dedicated to a god living apart, marked by their long, tangled hair, traditionally shunned.
This is such a key strategy, often seen in colonial encounters, finding and exploiting existing social fissures, the marginalized groups, to gain a foothold, offering them a status or acceptance they didn't have before.
And most significantly, tragically for Okonkwo, his own son Oye is drawn in. He's captivated by the missionaries' hymns and stories. He finds a kind of solace there, something that his father's relentless harshness and the trauma of Ikemofuna's death couldn't provide. That snapping inside him finally found a different path. He secretly attends church, then openly converts, enduring Okonkwo's terrible fury and physical abuse. Onoye eventually leaves, goes to Umuru to attend the missionary school. He wants to learn to read and write. He's renamed Isaac.
Onye's choice is just. It's a seismic crack, right there in the foundation of family and tradition. It really reveals this profound spiritual hunger, maybe, or a need for something different that the traditional ways, for all their strength, couldn't fully satisfy for everyone. Or perhaps they were too rigid to adapt.
And Okonkwo, of course, sees in Oye's defection not just as simple disobedience, but as a personal affront, maybe even a curse from his chi. It's a profoundly personal betrayal for him, one that mirrors the larger societal breakdown that's just beginning. So the stage is set for a dramatic clash. Okonkwo finally returns from his 7 years of exile. He expects to find Umuofia as he left it strong, warlike, ready to assert itself. But things have changed. The center, as Yates put it, has really begun to unravel. And a shift in missionary leadership makes things even worse. Mr. Brown, the first missionary, had adopted this policy of, compromise and accommodation, to a degree. He built relationships. Remember those long discussions with the Kuna about Chukwu versus the smaller gods? He even established schools and a hospital. He tried to learn about the clan's religion.
He did. His approach was more gradualist, maybe more strategic in the long run, building influence through dialogue and service. But then he gets sick and has to leave. His successor, the Reverend James Smith, is a stark contrast. This shift in leadership is crucial. Mr. Smith was rigid, uncompromising. He saw the world in stark black and white, and black was evil. No room for nuance. He openly condemned Mr. Brown's moderation and actively fueled the zeal of converts like Enoch. Mr. Brown sought to understand, maybe co-opt, but Mr. Smith arrived with a sledgehammer, refusing to see any shades of gray, escalating tensions dramatically.
Yeah, it shows how colonial power wasn't monolithic. Different approaches, different personalities could have drastically different impacts.
Absolutely. And it demonstrates that shift from maybe a softer, insidious infiltration to overt confrontation.
And the conflicts, they just escalate quickly under Smith. There's the Osu controversy again. Mr. Kiaga, the African teacher running the church in Mabanta, had already insisted on welcoming Osu into the church, challenging that fundamental caste system.
Right, where Osu were taboo, shunned, couldn't marry freeborn, had to live apart.
Exactly. And Kiaga's firmness, his command for them to shave their distinctive tangled hair, the very mark of their caste, it cemented their loyalty. Many Osu became the most fervent Christians. Then, an Osu convert takes the ultimate step. He allegedly kills the sacred python, revered as our father, an emanation of the god of water, a huge sacrilege. The clan elders, rather than attacking the Christians directly, decide to ostracize them. They believe the gods will fight their own battles. And this belief seems reinforced when the accused man, Okoli, dies shortly after. But Okonkwo despises this inaction. He sees it as womanly weakness.
It's another instance, isn't it, where the clan's traditional methods for dealing with sacrilege, ostracism, waiting for divine intervention, they just prove ineffective against this new force that doesn't play by their rules, that doesn't fear their gods in the same way. This inaction further frustrates Okonkwo, who believes the only appropriate response is force, immediate action.
And then, the breaking point. It arrives with Enoch's desecration. Enoch, described as zealous, maybe overzealous convert, the son of the snake priest.
Oh, the irony there.
Right. During the annual ceremony for the earth goddess, when the ancestral spirits, the Ogugu, are walking the earth, Enoch dares to unmask one of them in public.
Unthinkable.
It's one of the greatest crimes imaginable. It's like killing an ancestral spirit. It throws Umuofia into utter confusion and terror. The Ogugu retaliate swiftly. They emerge from the spirit world, go to Enoch's compound, burn it to the ground. Then they proceed to the church, now seen as the source of this sacrilege, and despite Mr. Smith's defiance softened only by his interpreter Okeke's wise mistranslation, they level it, reduce it to a pile of earth and ashes. For a moment, the clan feels pacified. They feel they've asserted their authority, cleansed the land.
But this is where that tragic irony comes into play again. The clan believes it's reasserting its strength, reclaiming its traditions through this act of destruction, restoring balance. But the white man's government, the district commissioner, operates on a completely different plane of power. It sees this traditional justice not as justice, but as a crime riot arson. And it uses this incident to systematically undermine the clan's authority and self-worth with a force they simply aren't equipped to resist.
And indeed, the colonial government's clampdown is swift and brutal. The district commissioner returns, hears about the church's destruction. He invites 6 Umuofia leaders, including Okonkwo, to a palaver, a meeting, supposedly to discuss the issue peacefully. But it's an ambush. The leaders are seized, handcuffed, and thrown into the guardroom, imprisoned. They're subjected to intense humiliation. Their heads are shaved, they're denied food and water, taunted by the Kotma, the court messengers who are themselves Africans, adding another layer of complexity, calling them ashy buttocks. They're held until the clan pays a heavy fine, 250 bags of cowries, though the messengers inflate it for their own profit. Okonkwo is just choked with hate, filled with regret they didn't fight back immediately at the DC's office.
It's a calculated act of dehumanization, isn't it? The colonial administration doesn't just want control. It wants to shatter their dignity, their sense of self-worth, demonstrate the absolute superiority of its power structure. It's about breaking their spirit, psychologically disarming them before any real fight can begin.
Upon their release, Okonkwo is just consumed by bitterness and a renewed, almost desperate desire for war. He gets out his war dress, thinks about past glories when Umuofia was feared by its neighbors. At a large clan meeting, convened to decide finally whether to fight or appease the white man, 5 court messengers arrive, demanding the meeting stop. Okonkwo, seeing them, utterly enraged by their arrogance and contemptuous of his own clan's hesitation and discussion. Why did he do it? The narrator asks. He springs up, draws his machete, and decapitates the head messenger.
Imagine that silence, that moment of sheer defiance, a lifetime of suppressed rage unleashed in one brutal act. But the clan doesn't rally behind him. They don't draw their own machetes. Instead, there's tumult, confusion, fear, people asking, why did he do it? Okonkwo. It's a moment of terrible, crushing clarity for Okonkwo. He realizes the center cannot hold within his own people. They will not go to war. The spirit is broken.
Unable to bear this perceived weakness, the final humiliation, and the inevitable capture and trial by the white man's law, Okonkwo walks away. He goes to his compound and hangs himself from a tree. An act considered an abomination against the earth goddess, meaning his own clansmen cannot touch his body, cannot bury him. It has to be strangers. It falls to his loyal friend, Obieka, devastated, to lead the district commissioner to Okonkwo's dangling body. And Obierka delivers that poignant, heartbreaking lament, reflecting on his friend's greatness and his tragic fate, directly blaming the white man. That man was one of the greatest men in Umuofia. You drove him to kill himself, and now he will be buried like a dog. He says, he has put a knife on the things that held us together and we have fallen apart.
Such powerful words, a direct accusation.
But the district commissioner's response is just chilling in its complete lack of understanding, its detachment. He sees Okonkwo's suicide merely as an interesting detail, a primitive custom, perhaps worth noting. He thinks about the book he's planning to write, The Pacification of the Primitive Tribes of the Lower Niger. And he calculates that Okonkwo's story might merit a reasonable paragraph, maybe even a whole chapter, but decides against it. A paragraph will do, completely missing the profound human tragedy he has witnessed and, frankly, played a direct role in creating.
That final scene just encapsulates Achebe's genius, doesn't it? The district commissioner's perspective utterly dismisses the complexity, the humanity, the history, the suffering of the Igbo people, reducing it all to a footnote in his self-serving colonial narrative of pacification. It powerfully illustrates the inherent bias, the blindness, and the ultimately destructive nature of that colonial outlook.
So, this deep dive, it's really shown us how Chinua Achebe masterfully portrays the intricate traditions, the strengths, and yes, the flaws of the Igbo people through Okonkwo's story. And it reveals the devastating, multi-layered impact of colonialism, not just politically or economically, but psychologically, spiritually, both on an individual like Okonkwo and on an entire society. He doesn't just tell a story. He gives voice to a world that was shattered.
Absolutely. Achebe's novel forces us, even today, to confront the complexities of cultural clash, the very subjective nature of what we call progress, and the profound personal cost when core beliefs and community bonds are deliberately or inadvertently shattered. It's such a powerful testament to the fact that history is rarely simple, and it's rarely without deep, lasting human consequence.
So as we reflect on Achebe's Things Fall Apart, perhaps it leaves us and you with this question. What are the silent messages or the unforeseen consequences in our own modern world when core beliefs, community bonds, traditional structures are profoundly challenged, perhaps by technology, globalization, or shifting ideologies? And how do we, individually and collectively, discern wisdom amidst that kind of chaos before our own centers, whatever they may be, can no longer hold?